Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Data Science Hangout. If you're joining for the first time today, I'm Rachel, and it's great to meet you. If this is your first Hangout, this is an open space for the whole data science community to connect and chat about data science leadership, questions you're facing, and what's going on in the world of data science. The sessions are recorded and shared to YouTube, as well as the RStudio Data Science Hangout site. So you can always go back and rewatch or find helpful resources too. We also have a LinkedIn group that Tyler or Hannah will share in just a second here in the chat. If you ever want to continue a certain discussion or meet people from today as well. But together, we're all dedicated to creating this welcoming environment for everybody. So we love when everybody can participate in these and we can hear from everyone. So there's 3 ways that you can ask questions today. You could jump in by raising your hand on Zoom and I can call on you. You could put questions into the Zoom chat and feel free to just put a little star next to your question if you wanted me to read it instead, if it's maybe loud where you are or something. But we also have a Slido link where you can ask questions anonymously as well. Just like to reiterate, we love to hear from everybody, no matter your level of experience or area of work as well. And all of these questions asked today are up to you. I'm so excited to be joined by my co-host for today, Ivonne Carrillo Domínguez, Data Engineering Manager at Bixal. And Ivonne, I'd love to just start by having you introduce yourself and maybe sharing a little bit about your work and the company that you work at as well.
Sure, thank you. And thank you for inviting me to hang out with you. I was feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome because I was like, I'm not a data scientist. I don't know what what I can contribute, but I hope this is helpful. It is helpful and productive for you all. And well, about my role, I am data engineering manager, as Rachel said, and my role is similar to the manager roles that you will see in small companies, because yeah, we are a small company, and also the data team is still small, and we are growing it little by little. But what that means for me is that I am leading a team and also mentoring them, but I'm also still in some contracts, I will work as an individual contributor as well. So I am a data engineer in one of the contracts, while at the same time leading a team of data analysts, engineers, and scientists. So it's like all together. So that's in a nutshell or in a high level what I do here at Bixal. Well, about Bixal, we are a company that we do consultancy work for the federal government. So most of our contracts are for the government. There are opportunities as well for the private sector, and I think that's where we are leading now. But yeah, the kind of work that we do is so digital services for learning, for marketing, communications, the technology part that is the biggest part, while we do content, systems, web applications, and then of course the data team. Yeah, that's what we do.
Awesome, thank you. And while we wait for questions to come in from the audience here, I'm curious, what's something that you're most excited about in the data space in the next year or so?
Well, one of the things that I am seeing, and mostly in the federal government, where I have more experience, is that like some years ago, most of the agencies were in the point where they had a lot of data, but they didn't know what to do with it, and or how to ingest it in the cloud, how to analyze it. Like they just know that there were some data. And now what I am seeing is that a lot of agencies already have some sort of report system or a dashboard or a data pipeline, and they are in another phase where they want to do more things with that. So they want to start like for real making decisions using the data, so data-driven decisions, and using it also to lead or to use it to make policy changes. So that's something that I really like, and I'm really excited. And also I'm seeing more opportunities for machine learning and predictions. So something that I remember, like even 2 years ago, most of the projects were still in the point where they needed a data pipeline. So now it's like in the other stage. So I'm really excited about that.
That's great. Thank you. I said I was going to start asking this question after last week as well, but I wanted to ask people so we can get to know them a little bit better. But what's something that you like to do in your free time outside of work?
So what I do, I'm not a super fun person, but well, I have a dog and I like to hang out with her and walk her. But one of the things that I also like is to cook and to bake. And I think that's something that I was doing before the pandemic, but definitely like since the pandemic that grew exponentially. And another thing about me is that I am a vegan. So one of the things that I like is to veganize like dishes. And for example, I am from Mexico, so the Mexican cuisine is like can be very vast, but many of the dishes has meat. So try to make them without meat is something that I really like. So that's something that I do. Yep.
Nice. Thank you. That's funny because Adam said last week that cooking was his side or what he liked to do out of work as well. I see Tanya, you asked a great question in the chat. Do you want to jump in and ask that live?
Yeah, sure. And I'll probably tag team with Libby's question too, because it's kind of all in the same vein. So you mentioned that you are an individual contributor and a data engineer manager, and I'm just curious, how do you balance your time between these two different roles? I imagine it's kind of going from one mentality of doing to thinking more high level. So I'm curious how you navigate that. And then Libby asks a great question too of which do you like better?
That's interesting. I think it depends on the day. But yeah, I think the thing that I enjoy the most is to mentor people and to share my knowledge. And since I still need to like put my hands on the code and work with a team as an individual contributor, I learn a lot there. So that's something that I try to take advantage of that. Like I mean, in a contract, I will always meet people that know more than me, and or they do things differently as well. So that's something that I like about that, and that I can take and then share that with the rest of the team. I think at this point, I'm starting to enjoy more the manager role rather than the IC thing right now. The two of them can have like stressful times, but the kind of problems that I have when I am a mentor or a manager, I think I enjoy more, like I'm more excited about that. While as an IC, sometimes the work or the stress is about setting up an environment, and I really enjoy that. Before right now, I'm like, no, I don't know if I want to spend my time or most of my time on that. I still like that. But one of the things that I get to do as a manager is also like the designing solutions or solutions are architecting. And that in that role, I need to investigate new technologies, new tech stacks. So I need to set up that environment, but it is a new thing. And I am learning and I am figuring out if that's the best solution or not. So that part I like, while when it is as an IT, it's different. Sometimes it's kind of if you're in a contract, it's going to be the same tech stack until the contract ends. And as I say, I still like that, and I get benefit of that because I will collaborate with people and I will learn a lot. So I still like that. But if I need to choose one, I think I will go with the manager role.
I have a follow-up question, if
Sure.
that's okay. So Elon Musk put out that thing that was like, you have to be an engineer in order to be an engineering manager. What do you think about that? Do you think that having the technical background is really important to your ability to lead these engineers and mentor people? Or do you think that you would still be good at it if you didn't have the technical background?
I think you will still be good at it. It helps me because I can understand some of the problems, and I can also help or to be the bridge between the data analyst and the infrastructure engineers, for example, or other software engineers. I have that background and it helps. But I think the most important thing is to be empathetic with people and have like listening skills. There are other things when you are doing people management that are maybe more important. And I know there are, especially in the IT field, that there are engineers that wants the engineer manager to know more than them, but that's not always going to be possible. I have like some background doing almost all my career was in as a software engineer, but now that I am going towards being a manager, organically I won't be able to be in contract, so I won't have that deep down knowledge. So I think it's not, we shouldn't give a lot of weight to that. And if you don't know something, that's okay. And you can lead that person to the person that will know, or that will mentor that person in that specific skill, or get some formal education or training for them. And so there are other ways that you can solve that or navigate that. If your role as an engineer manager has the solution architecting part, that's like different because, well, maybe for that, yeah, you need that background, but otherwise, no. So there are different types or managers. So it can be very technical or not. In my case, it is more technical, but I think what makes a great manager is that they have these people management skills, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Zoom has never done this to me, but for some reason I can see everybody's faces, but the rest of the Zoom controls have left somewhere. It just updated today, right when I joined. So I think it's something with that, but we're good. I can unmute. So I know that we had talked a little bit earlier, Ivonne, about benefits of being a data professional when talking to senior leadership. And I was curious if you could give us a little more information about what you mean by that.
Yeah, so I've seen that senior leadership, so the C-level and VPs like to talk with data professionals because they feel like we are or more flexible or more we can give the information faster. But I think what happens is that when we want to explain something, we're very good at using visual information as opposed to just talking. So if I want to present a solution, and I know what they want to hear. They want to hear time, resources, money, and I can put that in a nice chart because that's what we do all the time. And so they can see it right away, all the information that they need. And that I think that's one of the benefits of being a data professional, that if you need to share some information or to inform or to lead some people to some decision, that you can do that with a dashboard, a chart. And it's not like with the chart, you don't need to talk. Like, obviously you will need to explain things, but even then, whenever they ask questions, the information is there, so you can just like point to that. Like, okay, this is the money that you're going to save, or this is the time that we call save as well. So yeah, that's something that I'm seeing, and it's not that I do that. I see that with other people in my team as well, that whenever they want to talk with other teams, they always prepare a dashboard or like very quickly, like just like a workflow, for example. When we talk with the infrastructure engineers as well, we have like the workflow. Maybe we won't know exactly the services that we want, but we can say, I need some storage here. I need to run some R or Python script here, and I need to other storage here, and I need some sort of database here. And they can know or suggest, and we can work easier with them. So that kind of collaboration is always easier when you have those visuals. And I think that's something that we do it very fast, or since this is what we do, like to share information with visuals, like that's something that we leverage that when also contributing or collaborating with other teams.
That's a great tip to think about for people who are in other functions of the business as well. I see there was a question on Slido a bit earlier that was, when you get to your desk in the morning and start your workday, what's the first thing you think about?
Well, the meetings, the meetings that I will have that day. Yeah. Sometimes I have like very nice days where I just have like one meeting and that's all. But yeah, that's what I do to plan my day. And so the hours that I don't have any meetings, sometimes I block that time. Like, this is like my focus time, and I need to work. And also, like, so that's one of the things that I do, the planning my day, like meetings versus focus time. But also, if I have like a pending thing with one of my team members, like I know that they are working on something, maybe somebody asked them an estimation, or like they need to do something, and I know that is like time sensitive. I plan some time also just to check in and see if they need some support. And if not, yeah, all the day is going to be just focus time.
Thank you. I see, Justin, you had asked a question, or it sounds like someone was about to jump in. Do you want to jump in with that question, Justin?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Rachel, thanks for putting these together. These were great. This is my first time joining. So really
Thanks
thankful.
for joining.
I'm in the city of Baltimore, and my question is basically around like, you know, a lot of folks who get into data science are like really eager to use kind of new tools, machine learning, but like, and I expect this to happen in industry too, but particularly in government, we get kind of constrained about like what we can actually use. It has to be either sanctioned by IT, or at least needs to meet certain guidelines and parameters, and not everyone knows how to use those tools. So how do you manage kind of those expectations for folks about, you know, yeah, that looks like a great tool, but like these three things over here are the ones that our company uses or that the government uses to get our work done. Do you run into those kind of frustrations, or yeah,
Yep.
how do you kind of manage that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are like different reasons why that will happen. So the first one is just budget. So if they already have a license, let's say that they have a Tableau license, but we see that we could do it with Power BI because they use SharePoint, for example. But then it's like they don't have that license, and it's just budget. And to get approval for tools, and yeah, money can take time. So that's something that we need to adapt. Like, that's the tool that they have, and if we see that we can get the approval within time, we will take the risk. Otherwise, we just go with the tools that they have approved, and yeah, just work around that. And another part is what you were mentioning, that they already have some tools that they know, and they are used to that, and it's hard to make them the move. Maybe some people really want to change, but they know that some users will have some resistance to do that change, and that not everybody is on the technology side, or no, they are not very tech savvy. So we need to understand that part as well, that they have a job that is not related with technology. So it's going to be hard to move a whole group of people to go to another tool. So it depends on the audience as well, on how big of the audience it is. Because one of the things that we do as well is precisely learning services. So we can prepare, or we can propose that to prepare some trainings, some documentation that they can use, so we can use another tool. But the reason is going to be, or it should be always, because it is cost effective. So we are going to do it faster, or it's going to be easier to maintain. Sometimes they are proposing things that will require a whole team on their side just to maintain that infrastructure or software. And we can propose something that is going to be just easier to maintain. And so at the end of the day, it's more cost effective. So that's one thing. And most people will like that. So if it is going to save them time and money, they are always going to like that. But then it's the other part that they need some training or education. So that's something that we can also mitigate by providing those services as well. And yeah, and there are people that is just afraid to change because they feel that it's going to take more time to change all this. And that is, at the end of the day, that's money, and maybe they don't have that. But if we really do the diligence to do that discovery and say, okay, no, at the beginning, yes, it's going to take more time, but then you are going to save all this. So that's something that we could do. And sometimes it's just a no from their side. Maybe they didn't get the approval. And in that case, we just need to tell them what is going to happen. Like, okay, we are going to use your tools and your methodologies, but we are not going to be able to deliver all the things that you want. So with those restrictions, this is what we can deliver, and explaining them why. Like, we cannot just work with that, or we cannot optimize or modernize your system if we have those limits. We can just do like these 3 things, for example. And most clients will understand that because they know that it's there's not much they can do as well.
It's a really helpful phrase too. With those restrictions, this is what we can deliver. It looks like in the chat there are a lot of people that are experiencing this as well and are saying they feel your pain, Justin. So I'd love to stay on this topic a little bit longer if other people have gone through this and have other things to share as well. Not to call on anyone. I know, David, you mentioned that you've had to do this, and Evan.
Yeah, sorry, Rachel. I was trying to multitask here while you're asking that question. But yeah, definitely. For those who don't know, I work at NASA, and we've been trying to implement a lot of different tools, and it's been a long, arduous journey over the last 3 or 4 years, just trying to get an infrastructure set up. So it's definitely not an easy task within the government at times, and I'm sure in industry it's the same way. But there's always a group that wants to use no-code, low-code type tools. And just buy a vendor, which for some of the organizations in our agency that have the funding, maybe that's easy to do because they can spend that kind of money on a tool such as Alteryx, which costs us $5,000 a user per year. But my organization with little funds, we need to be able to do things with coding. So it's definitely just a matter of keeping the conversation going and showing the value of open source technologies and other resources rather than some of these no code, low code type tools. So it's not easy, but it can be done.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I see there's a lot of great conversation happening in the chat around that as well. So if anybody else wants to weigh in, always feel free to raise your hand here on Zoom too. I see, Jamie, you have your hand raised. You want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah, just a brief note, 2 notes to add to that. I think also coming from a public setting, I'm in Toronto with a hospital group. We've recently been exploring some more container-based tech stacks, largely for this reason, to give sort of the flexibility that some of our engineers and scientists may want. Although at other expenses too, like if everyone's using their own language and own frameworks, it can become unmaintainable as well. Other quick note, I've been kind of surprised my own hiring, how much tech stack in a job description can influence what kind of candidates you receive too. I was trying really hard to hire a developer at one point, and just changing the tech stack to something that was more appealing to industry at the time completely changed how kind of candidates we had coming in.
That's a very good point. Like hiring IT people is hard, and when you are in a public sector, it's just harder for sure.
I see there are a few other questions coming through on Slido as well. And Ivonne, one was, what are some of the hardest problems you find yourself trying to solve over and over again, where it feels like we don't have any good solutions available yet?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know. So something that I've seen, or that I was seeing a lot is a lot of agencies needed that data pipeline, and so they can consolidate all the information in one place. And while I know that a lot of agencies have like move on to the next stage, that's something that was very repetitive. Like, and I think the challenge was exactly what we were talking about, like how you can make this data pipeline with those limitations. So for example, sometimes the client doesn't want to go to the cloud, so you need to do it, but they want to somehow to be optimized and maybe not automated, but the process needs to be optimized and some of the parts automated. So that was very challenging, and it's not an isolated case like that happens a lot. But at the end of the day, there is a solution for that. We can just work around that. I don't know about a challenging problem that we haven't like find out a solution. I mean, as an IT as a whole, yeah, I don't know. I will think about that, and if I think in a better answer, I will definitely go back to that.
Thank you very much. I see Sam, you asked a question in the chat. I think it has a star there, so I'll read it, but it's, have you worked on projects where you inherited technical debt, and how have you tackled that to obtain a more future-proof solution?
Yeah, sometimes there are projects that are just too good to pass on, but it is like somebody started it, so you are inheriting it, and then when you see the code, you are going to see a lot of to-dos in there, and it's like, okay, good. It makes sense. Also, we have done work that needs to be done from scratch, and given the circumstances, like there are some unknowns, so it's I understand that part. But yeah, I think the challenge sometimes is to know why they took some decisions on why they are doing this tool, why they are those to-dos. Sometimes they don't make sense with the final infrastructure or the whole solution. And yeah, I guess it's just tackle one by one, because yeah, there's always going to be that technical debt. I think in one of the contracts that I remember that was very successful at that is that we had some overlap with the previous contractor. So they were able to tell us exactly what that tech debt was there. Like, these are the things that we didn't have time to do, or that because of priorities, we never got to this. And then we were able to have all those like in tickets, and then prioritize that. Like, okay, from what we heard of what they shared, this is what we need to work like right now, before we jump into the actual work. And the rest is going to be just little by little. And some of those tickets or things are not going to apply anymore sometimes, because maybe we changed to another technology that we found it was more cost effective. Sometimes we are inheriting projects that are maybe not super old, but yeah, like maybe 10 years, and 10 years ago, like the technology was very different. So yeah, there's will be obviously more or better tools that we can just change. So yeah, some of the tech that is not going to be is not going to apply anymore. But I think if we have that opportunity to ask the previous contractor, we will have that and then prioritize. If not, then when at the beginning, when we try to host that or to replicate the infrastructure, is when we are going to see like the biggest things that we need to tackle. And the hidden ones are those like to-dos in the code, because you don't see it right away. But one thing that you could do is just try to find them. Just look all the to-dos in the code and see if you can identify one of those that are really big or important. You're not going to, in some cases, maybe most of them, or you're not going to be able to tackle all of them. Sometimes it's like really huge, but yeah, I guess, yeah, just prioritize and focus on the big ones.
Thank you. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey as well, and your like jumping from generalist software engineer to specialized data engineer, and what that was like.
Yeah, so I graduated as a computer systems engineer, and at the beginning I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what the industry was offering to begin with. So I was just like saying yes to any offer, like whatever life was throwing me. And so I had the opportunity to have very different jobs. So at the beginning, I was a front-end developer. So I was migrating an application. I will sound very old, but yeah, that was a standalone application in a mainframe. So with green screens and that, I was migrating that to the web. And so I learned some web development. that later on didn't help me a lot because I was using technology that is not used anymore, but I was using Java, and Java really helped me out later. From that, I jumped to be a tester. So I was doing software validation for aircraft engines, so a whole new thing. And then I jumped into the retail sector, doing backend for an operating system. So there I was using Java as well, and some C or C++. So it was more like low-level programming. And that helped me a lot with my programming skills, because that's where, since it was a very low level, and it was like programming, like the signals that the keyboard sends to the operating system, things like that. You need to use a lot of like linked lists, arrays, vectors, all those data structures that I was like, I'm not going to use these when I work. Well, I was using all of those, but and I that helped me with my coding skills. Then that's all of that was in Mexico. Oh, and I also was a data engineer in Mexico. That was my last job. And then I moved into the United States. And at that point, I knew I wanted to work with data because I really liked that. It wasn't like as low level as operating system. But it's still, I got to use those coding skills to be parsing data. So I really like that. But when I was here, I knew that I needed to get any opportunity that I have. And I learned some web application, web development frameworks like Ruby on Rails, PHP on Django, and PHP with Drupal, and Go, like different stacks there. And so I felt that I was like moving around. I also was in the infrastructure team for a while. So I was learning like a lot, and that was helping me to get, or to be like put into contracts, because I was able to do a lot of stuff. Maybe I wasn't very knowledgeable like in anything, but I knew a lot. I mean, it was very wide, not deep. But I really wanted to go to, so one, go back to data, and two, start specializing in something. I felt like, okay, I enjoyed all that, like learning all those skills, but I was seeing other people that they really know a lot of what they know. So I want to be like that. So whenever I was able to be in data contracts, because I wanted to keep working for the federal government. So to do that, you need some clearances, especially when you are seeing data. And to do that, I needed to be a US resident. So finally I became one, and I was able to move to the data field again. And that's when I started specializing more. And yeah, I really like that, because there's just too much to learn in all these fields, like infrastructure, front end, back end, and it can get crazy sometimes. And just in data, there's a lot to learn as well. But at least I'm like more focused now on what I want to do, or where I want to go.
That's great. Thank you. And I agree with Libby. Love to hear the generalist versus specialist conversation. I see, Victor, you had asked a question in the chat. Do you want to jump in? And I can read the question to it. It was, what should be the roadmap to data science based on your experience? And Victor, I'm curious if what perspective that's coming from, like just starting to learn data science, or which role you're in now.
I think he's on mute.
Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, I don't know if I really can answer that. What I will tell any person that wants to go to data science is, well, first find a mentor that can really help you or guide you in that part. But as a data engineer, I will encourage you to use cloud tools to learn that part. I know that data engineering may not be the career path that you want to go, but you will always need some data engineering skills, especially if you want to show something or to prototype something, and you can be able to do that yourself. Like just small projects. You don't have to start with big data, but obviously if the scope of the project is huge, you will need a lot of teams. You will need your data engineers, infrastructure engineers, but just to know what all the teams do, I think that's going to be very helpful when you want to collaborate with others. So it will help you to collaborate and also to do your research or analysis yourself like easier, because you won't depend on anyone. So you can start using some tools. Like for example, if you want to use AWS, you can start using S3 for storage and maybe start playing around with Athena or with Glue for transforming the data. And then when you want that, so you want to show a proof of concept, maybe someone can take that and scale that. And yeah, I think as a data scientist, you still need to clean your data anyway. So I think that's a part that I can't talk about. I know that there are other skills like statistics or data analysis, but that's not my area of expertise. I just really encourage you to grow also in your data engineering skills. That will make you a more solid data scientist. Maybe at the beginning, you need to focus on other skills, but if you want to jump into the industry, you will always need to do some data engineering in a small scale. But yeah.
It's really helpful. Thank you. I know, Mandeep, you had asked a question a little bit earlier in the chat. Do you want to jump in and ask that?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everybody. So yeah, my question's around the languages. You talked a lot about a variety of languages that you've worked with. And languages are similar and dissimilar in different ways. Did you have a framework when jumping between the different languages? And if so, like, or what is the first thing that you look at when you're looking at a new language that you got to use, or a new framework within AWS, for example? Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I need to learn a new language, the first thing that I want to see is the data types. They can change slightly between languages, but that's the first thing that you need to work with variables. So if you have a text, it's going to be a string or it's going to be other name. If you have a Boolean, it's going to be just bool or Boolean, or just to know the data types. And then the, how they are called, the flow, the syntax is to do those flows like the if, for, while, and or switch case or other. It's just I forgot the name of what those are called, but yeah, how to do those flows. And because yeah, as well, they change between languages and they have like slight changes. Sometimes is for and then the name of your temporary variable and then colon and the list. And sometimes it's between parentheses and you need to do it other way around. And just knowing that can let you start with that. So at the beginning, my code is like super basic. It will have a lot of like if and fors, and maybe that's all. But by little I start learning more of the ways of optimizing the code. But I think that's the very, very first things that I do or try to learn. And one of the things that you also need to do, especially in data, is just open a file, open a CSV, open an Excel file, open a JSON file. So that's something that I will do next. So how I'm going to read a JSON file. And so I try to learn that. So what is the code that I will use? If it is Python, for example, you will do it with pandas that are just like a very easy function to do that. And that's brings me to another thing. Sometimes the language is not specialized to handle data. For example, Python. With R, like that's specifically for doing statistics and data, so it's very easy to use for that. But Python wasn't created for data. So that's another thing that you will need to do, like what are the libraries that are used for data analysis. So okay, it is Python, and then you will see, okay, there's NumPy, there's pandas, and then try to see the documentation and what are the things that you can do with the data. So that will be maybe the last thing I will do, and then it's just practice and trying to get better at it.
Thank you. I see there are a few Slido questions that touch upon a similar idea, and one was asking about what your tech stack looks like, and then the other is around preferences for data visualization and why.
Sure. So for tech stack, it depends on the contract I am working on. So yeah, I don't have like one specific one. In Bixal, we try to push to use AWS, and we have this the infrastructure. We did like an environment that we can reproduce. So we are using Terraform. So that's why we like that. So if we know that we are going to need some S3 buckets, maybe a way to transform the data with AWS Glue or Lambda, and then another storage, we can deploy that infrastructure very quickly because we have that already in Terraform. So that's what we try to use, and also it has all the requirements that some federal contracts require that are like the security compliances, like FedRAMP, for example. So if we are free to use any tech stack, we are going to use AWS for sure. And for doing the ETL or the extract, transform, load process, we tend to use Python just because it's easier to deploy that to AWS. And it's always easier to find people that know Python. At some point, we were leaning more into R, but it was hard to find people. It was harder to especially like 2 years ago, it was harder to use it in the cloud. Right now, it is getting better. And for the data visualization tools, well, I like Shiny. I've worked with Shiny on our studio, and it's just very fun. It's very fun to work with, and trying to make your charts and visualization like prettier and interactive. I really enjoyed working with that one. So I recommend that one just because it's fun, because I really like it. And you can customize it as much as you need. Sometimes when you're using a tool like Power BI or Tableau, and then the customer is like, oh, I want to have my branding and my theming. Sometimes it's not as easy to customize it as much as the client wants. But it also depends on the time or the resources that you have. If you have limited time, sometimes Tableau is just the easiest way to go. And also it's the one that the client knows the most. So if we can do it our way, maybe we are going to go, and we have like unlimited time. yeah, we will need to decide between doing it with Shiny or maybe a React application. It also depends on who is going to do it. So, but my favorite one, it will be Shiny and Tableau.
Thank you very much. One other follow-up question, I think someone had asked around sharing APIs with inside and outside of the organization. Is there a certain tool that you use for that?
I'm not sure I understand the question, like sharing API.
I think, let me double check. AJ, I see you asked that. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so a lot of times, you have great tables logic built into tables, your suppliers or people within cross-functionally want to get their hands on that data. But they're huge files, right? They're tables that get refreshed every so often. So is there a way you prefer sharing those big data files internally or externally, like through API tools? I don't know if AWS has those technology.
Yeah. So yeah, that's also a good question. We've been in projects where it's just easy to push that data to GitHub or GitLab, but that's not really best practice. Maybe that's something you could do when you are in the prototyping like phase, especially if it is like private data that you cannot share, that you shouldn't share that, like never in GitHub. But so we have used two options there. So just upload the data into S3 and give access to the people that needs to have access. And with S3, that's a good tool because it is reliable and it is scalable. So you can just upload as much data as you want. And you can also restrict the data depending on what people can see. So you can assign roles to the people and they will only see what they need to see. So that's a good solution. And another one that we have used, and this is if people that are not very technical are going to be participating, we use SharePoint because we use a lot of Microsoft tools. So we have Teams and Outlook. So a lot of people is already familiar. I mean, within Bixal is already familiar with SharePoint. So that's the tool that we are going to use. And you can also restrict the data. I think we will prefer S3, but depending on the people that we are going to be collaborating with, maybe we are going to be using SharePoint. And then when you are setting up your environment, we know where to go to download the data. And if it is S3, you can just call it from your code. You can, if you have access, you just need your AWS keys and you can just like programmatically download that data. If it is SharePoint, I think there's a way to do it. We haven't used those, so but that's something to explore. And also we use a lot of in a lot of web applications, we use Drupal, which is a PHP framework for content management. And if we need to download data from there or to use content that it is in there, if the web application it is within the company, so Bixal developers are maintaining it, we can ask them to create an API for us. So Drupal has the ability to use enable the API, and then we can use it. Or we can request them exactly what data we need, and they will implement that endpoint for us, and then we just use it. So I think those are the three options that we use when we need to share information internally. I hope that answers
Thank you.
the question.
Oh yeah, that was great. Thank you.
And Jorge, I see you asked a question in the Zoom chat around data engineering positions. Do you want to jump in and ask that? I can read.
Sure.
Oh,
yeah, that's fine. Sorry. So the question is regarding that just when I was transitioning from developer to working in machine learning, I came across a lot of positions that were in data engineering. And oftentimes when I had the conversation with sorry, I think my camera is blocked. Oftentimes when I had a conversation with the recruiter, as soon as they heard that I didn't have experience in like Spark or any of the other distributed computing systems, MapReduce, all of those, I only covered it in grad school. I didn't use it in any job. So they just immediately lost interest, and they said, no, we just need interest. We need people with experience in those, and that was it, right? So do you find experience in those frameworks necessary to be a data engineer?
So you will learn that, but when I am hiring people, and for a data engineer position, I focus more on the programming skills. If you are a good engineer, you will learn Spark or MapReduce in no time. Like seriously, it's not. I wouldn't want to lose a good engineer because one skill. Yeah, no, I don't think. I mean, it is necessary in terms that you will end up using them, but in my opinion, I wouldn't say no to a person that I know is good and I can teach them or mentor them in these frameworks. When I started, like my first job as a data engineer, I didn't know any of those. I didn't know what big data was, or MapReduce or Spark. I had a lot of experience with Java. That's why they hired me, because they were like, okay, she knows Java, she knows how to program, that's more important. And I think I agree with that. And that's the philosophy that I still follow up to this moment. And so yeah, programming skill, that's basic, that you really need to know how to use code. And if it is one programming language that it is more common in data, like Java or Scala, Python or R, is going to be better. If your programming language is more like PHP or Ruby, those are good. I would really encourage you to learn Python though. But yeah, I don't feel those like Spark or MapReduce are really important or necessary when you are looking for a job. Although if you are having that experience, maybe you can do like a personal project and try to use, for example, if you know, do you know Python?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not in that position anymore, right? But it was when I was transitioning. I often found it, and I wasn't specifically looking for data engineering jobs. I was looking for machine learning engineer jobs, and sometimes recruiters contacted me for data engineering jobs, and I thought that maybe that was a good transition, right? Like if I wanted to transfer to transition, and it never panned out because of that lack of experience
I see.
so I just moved. So I jumped. I was able to jump positions and went straight to working in machine learning.
So it turns out better then. Yeah, no, that's good. But yeah, but the idea is actually good, like being in data engineer and then jump to machine learning. I think that makes sense. But yeah, if anyone is in that position, first I will try to show up my programming skills, and if you have the time, like maybe do a personal project where you can use, for example, if you know Python, then use PySpark, just play around with it so you can show that you know how to use it. I think what they are looking for, that you have experience with concurrency or parallel jobs, like what you are saying here, like distributed computing frameworks. Sometimes you need to think a bit differently. But if you start like playing around and reading about that, like that will give you a better opportunity to land that job.
I love Brittany's comment in the chat Brittany, didn't mean to put you on the spot, but if you want to share that.
Sure, yeah. So sometimes what I've found being both on the candidate side and on the interviewer side is that, especially when you're working through a third party like a hiring recruiter, they may not know all of the things, like they're given the job description and they may not know that, hey, I really need someone who has this skill, but if they don't have this particular one, I'm willing to train on that. And sometimes the recruiter doesn't know that information. And it might honestly change depending on how long the role is open for. And so, like, I think what's best for the candidate in that case is to try to get as close to whomever the actual hiring manager is as possible. And then just let them, like, give them your resume and let them know your experience. Because sometimes they'll look at your resume and they would absolutely love to give you an interview, where the recruiter might say, oh, you don't meet X% of the job description, therefore I'm not going to pass it on. So it's one of those disconnects between having a third party sort of do that interfacing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. We don't always do a good job specifying what, like, the key skills that we want in a candidate. And yeah, some recruiters will just say no or reject people that are really good.
Awesome. Thank you. I know that hour just went by very quickly. Somebody just asked, how do I stay informed about these calls? There's the Data Science Hangout site that Libby just shared, which has all of the recordings and upcoming sessions. If you want to just add it to your calendar directly, you can use the link I just shared there as well. And that will just add all of the recurring events. One other link I will share with you is it's actually a new Cordo doc that I just made, so I'm really proud of it right now. But it's just the upcoming community events, so you can see both the meetups and the Hangouts there as well. Ivonne, do you have to run to another meeting right now? I don't want to keep you over another minute.
No.
Okay. Okay. Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
Okay. There was an anonymous question that was, do you do any independent continuing education to stay current with new technologies, or does your company provide training?
So both, yes. So yeah, we have some funding to do our professional development, and I think that the challenge here is the time. So when to do it, and one of the things that have helping me a lot is to participate in events like this one. I just hear new things, and that helps me, and I can hear tools that are being used, and then I can spend some time to see more the details of that. So yeah, I really recommend you to like, for example, keep going to these hangouts, go to meetups or to other conference. That will give you a lot of insight of what's going on. And I try to do that. Obviously, sometimes times doesn't allow to do it. But yeah, for more formal training, yeah, I will use those professional development funds that the company gives me. Yeah. And I need to force me to educate, because otherwise I won't do it. So sometimes what I do is I commit to get a certification, or I tell other people, like, hey, let's do a study group, and because otherwise I won't do it. I know that I will quit. So that's something that I do to keep me on track. Yeah.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. It was great to be able to dive deeper into the data engineering side as well.
Oh, thank you. This was great. It was really fun. So thank you.
If people want to stay in touch with you, what's the best way? Is LinkedIn or Twitter preferred?
I need it. No, I think what I use the most is LinkedIn. So I can put my LinkedIn here. So yeah,
Awesome.
I think that's the best way to stay in touch. Just connect, and yeah, let's keep the conversation. Thank you all.
Perfect. Thank you all. Have a great rest of the day.